Well, hey everyone, my name is Nathan Jones, and if you're new here, welcome. I like to talk about all things movies, specifically Blu-rays, and it's snowing a lot outside. There's like a foot, and then some, maybe, of snow that just came today, and yeah, luckily I'm off work, and I'm able to watch some movies and also film some videos. So today, we're going to talk about what I've been watching for the month of January, and also some things that I've been reading, because I've also luckily, alongside work, coincide when I have some downtime, I'm able to read a little bit, and I've been in a good reading mood. So if you are interested in that, I know that's not normally what we do on this channel, but I will share that at the end, yeah, just to kind of show you what I'm interested in reading, and yeah, I hope you enjoy it too, and also if you're reading as well, we'll talk more about that later. But anyway, before we jump into what I have watched, I want to know, what have you watched for the month of January? Let me know in the comment section down below. All right, to begin, I will start off with the title that I watched on January 1st with my best friend. I think I may have mentioned this probably in a prior video, but regardless, I want to mention it again. And I'm talking about the 1976 King Kong, the TV version. I watched this with my best friend on New Year's night, and more or less when Kong fell, midnight struck, so it was an ill omen for 2022, but I had a really good time with this movie, yeah, I quite enjoyed seeing Jessica Lange in her film debut, you know, alongside Jeff Bridges, of course, Dino De Laurentiis, and Charles Grodin as well. Really good characters in this film, and it's really cool that it was split up into two. And I watched I think I watched the extended cut here, the television cut, right, which was 182 minutes with my best friend, and yeah, that was quite an experience, and I'm really glad Scream Factory put this one out. So it was a good time to ring in the new year. All right, next I'm going to talk about some things I don't have in front of me, some stuff that have recently been out in theaters, and the first one I want to mention is I watched The Tragedy of Macbeth. Now, The Tragedy of Macbeth is one of the Coen brothers. Yeah, this is a really fantastic film starring Frances McDormand, Brendan Gleeson. We have an all-star cast here. Macbeth is played by Denzel Washington, and so it's a really great film. And the thing is, when I first started watching this, I knew this was a Shakespeare film, and I knew that there's a language kind of barrier. There's like a little bit of a barrier here when it comes to the films that are adapted for Shakespeare, because I'm not classically trained in Shakespeare, and also we don't talk like that anymore. At least the English language is not like that. So it's a little bit jarring to kind of jump into those kind of worlds, but I know the story of Macbeth, of course, and I've seen many adaptations of it, and that alone, plus the acting in this film, also the cinematography, that's what really drew me into this movie. But when I was watching it in theaters, like I said, the first 20 minutes or so, it really was almost like a chore watching it. And so it's definitely it knows its audience, and it's definitely a film for people who are into the theater, also into acting in general. And yeah, but it's a gorgeous film, really fantastic acting. It's not something I would probably go back to anytime soon, but it was a good time, and I do recommend it for those who are in that ilk. All right, next I want to mention another film. I watched this one on Netflix, and I talked about it actually in my top 10 of 2021, so I won't mention too much about it, but I watched Jane Campion's The Power of the Dog with Benedict Cumberbatch, and wow, what a phenomenal movie. And like I said, I mentioned a lot more of it in my top 10, but this is a film that I thought I knew what it was going to be like going in, but completely was blown away by the performances and how the story unfolded, and there's the character development involved with everyone in it. Jesse Plemons, Kirsten Dunst, among everyone in it, was just phenomenal. So I highly recommend it. Now, another movie I watched on Netflix was Don't Look Up, with Leonardo DiCaprio and Jennifer Lawrence. And this movie, I liked it. It was a lot of fun, but also a little too on the nose of what's going on. It's interesting. I have an interesting relationship with Adam McKay. So Of course, like many people who watched Anchorman and his past comedies, I'm familiar with that side of Adam McKay a lot more. Until recently, he made things like The Big Short and Vice. The former one that is the only one I actually enjoyed. I really did not like Vice whatsoever. But yeah, this was kind of in the middle of those films. It definitely had some enjoyable moments. I enjoyed Leo's character, even though definitely not a good person, but very interesting. Anyway, the social commentary, nonetheless, was, like I said, is a little too on the nose, and the reason I think I didn't like it as much is it felt a little preachy in the sense to where people who maybe never really had to deal with the pandemic as much are talking about the pandemic in a way, and also climate denial. I mean, that's another guise in this film. It is a very political film, so it's really hard to talk about because, obviously people, can line up either way. Like, as a movie, I enjoyed it, right? And as social commentary, I'm in line with the conversation of it, and I'm definitely in agreement with a lot of the things going on, but it definitely felt a little bit deaf to the people who made the film, and that's just maybe my particular, interaction with the film. Not everyone has the same sensibilities with it. So anyway, I hope I didn't stir anyone away from watching the movie themselves and making their own opinion. So that's what I really highly suggest. So anyway, check it out if you haven't seen it. It's on Netflix, so don't look up. And next, I want to talk about something more fun, and I want to talk about the new Scream. So this is Scream, which is the fifth Scream, kind of renamed. It's a requel, is what they say in the movie. A very meta film. Of course, the 1996 classic Scream. We've talked about it on this channel before. I have the Steelbook that I recently got on 4K. And yeah, it's a classic movie, and I really like the franchise quite a bit. And I'm one of those people, and I will admit, I am not like such a big horror fan to where I know the ins and outs of every little detail of every one of these franchises, but Scream is one of those franchises that I really enjoy, and you really can't mess that one up too much, because I think all the Screams I enjoy to some degree, and I honestly need to probably get all of them besides just the first one, which is obviously my favorite, and probably many of yours favorites as well. But this fifth one, really good. I enjoyed it quite a bit. There's a lot of Easter eggs from the past Screams, and potentially set up for maybe a final one. I don't know. It kind of ended in a way where it definitely felt like there could be just like, this is it. But who knows? Obviously the last movie that came out was Scream 4, which was well over a decade ago. So who knows what's coming up next. But yeah, I enjoy it. If you like slashers and a good time with friends, I certainly recommend Scream, and I think it's still playing in theaters. I mean, it's probably about to get out. But yeah, it was a good time nonetheless. All right, next I want to talk about a film with the late, great Anton Yelchin, and I'm talking about Like Crazy right here. It also stars Felicity Jones, and also is starring Jennifer Lawrence. And this movie, this came out in 2011, so it was quite some time ago. It's over 10 years ago now. But yeah, this is like a young Jennifer Lawrence too. She's barely in it too. It's really about Felicity Jones and Anton Yelchin's relationship. Yeah, this is a really interesting romantic film. And there's some comedic moments into it, a lot of drama as well. It's really about a long distance relationship. They're both students when they meet, and Felicity Jones is an exchange student, kind of living in the States, but she resides in the UK. Yeah, they want to really continue their relationship, and I really enjoyed this movie. It's not perfect, but it's one of those things where I'm like, I've been so exposed to so much other things going on right now that I wanted something like this. And yeah, it was really good. And yeah, I recommend this film like crazy. All right, next, I just want to mention, because I mentioned these in my top 10 of 2021 as well, I did watch Spencer and Saint Maud, two totally different films, but I talk more about these films in depth in that video. So if you are curious about these films, check out my review. Yeah, these are fantastic films. They made my top 10. So, but speaking of Saint Maud and kind of the folk horror side of things, I did watch a lot of folk horror, and obviously I've been watching that Severin box set, which is not in this room. It's in my home theater room. But I was watching I think disc 5, and I just finished with that of Lake of the Dead and Tilbury. and I just decided, I'm like, you know what, I need to watch Witchfinder General, which is in this Vincent Price collection right here. So Witchfinder General is one of the 3 Unholy Trinity films within folk horror, and I have seen The Wicker Man a lot, and I have not seen Witchfinder General, nor have I seen Blood on Satan's Claw, which actually is on Shudder, so I will be watching that sometime soon. But yes, I'm in a folk horror mood, so I wanted to watch Witchfinder General, and I loved it. So yeah, this is the Vincent Price collection. I've seen a few of these films because it's in that set right there. You can see kind of near the edge of my screen. But yeah, it's a fantastic film, and I can see why. This film in particular, Vincent Price plays a cruel witchfinder who wasn't a general at first, but eventually does become this. And it's crazy that this is actually based on a real person, and this person eerily was alive until the very end of his existence, and even married, and he was notoriously a woman hater. Yeah, it's very, very interesting, and it's a high recommend. It's on Shudder. It's on probably other streaming services too, so if you don't have this film, certainly go check it out. If it fits like that Hammer horror, niche, that gothic horror niche, but also hits that folk horror niche, and I really, really enjoyed that about this film, and I'm so glad I was able to watch it. And speaking of folk horror around the world, I was able also to watch The Medium, which is a Thai folk horror film. Wow, what a really great film, kind of like a pseudo-documentary. And this film, I think the premise was really interesting at first, and there was a little bit of some strange things. But I will admit that I think there is a very sloppy middle part of this film that just drags and drags, and it's worth it to get to the end, of course, and there's some really, really scary sequences, but at the same time, man, oh man, that middle part, I generally am pretty positive, and I'm sure people who watch my channel know that I'm pretty open with a lot of films, but yeah, this film, it could have been a lot better, I think, and but I've heard a lot of people talk a lot of high praise on this film, and so I definitely wanted to check it out. And I enjoyed it, but that middle part certainly almost took me out of the whole experience. And kind of on the same line, I also watched Impedagore. And I saw this one on Shudder. I think I saw The Medium on Amazon Prime. Don't quote me on that one. But anyway, it's available on streaming nonetheless. And Impedagore is a 2019 film from Indonesia, and is another folk horror tale about 2 women who go to this remote village. One of them is trying to find some answers to her past and why she doesn't live in this village anymore. She really didn't have any memory of this place because she was pretty much whisked away from this really remote village, and there's reasons why too. But there's some nefarious things going on in the village and with all the villagers, and you'll see that unfold in this film. And I thought this was a really a much better film, and there was some really insane parts of this movie that I quite enjoyed, and I mean, not to say anything really, but the ending is like my favorite part of the movie. But that's just to set up some more things going on for the future if there is ever another thing that they're gonna make of that. Of course, that's how horror movies are nowadays. But anyway, nonetheless, I've been watching some horror. I've been also going through that Severin folk horror box set, and yeah, I'm on disc number 7 now. So just I think 4 more movies, and then I'll make another video talking about that particular box set and how much I've enjoyed it so far. So anyway, folk horror, yeah, that's what I've been talking a lot about. But now I want to talk about a sword and sorcery film, one of those crazy films from the early 80s, The Beastmaster. I finally watched my Vinegar Syndrome of The Beastmaster on 4K. Now this is an insane box. What a box here, and what a movie. What a fun film. So anyway, here is The Beastmaster. I have on 4K. There's a lot of really cool artwork right there. I only watched the film, so I didn't watch any of the special features. I just had enough time to watch the film. I've been working a lot, so I just haven't. But there's 2 Blu-ray discs, one with special features, of course, and then the 4K disc itself. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. It's almost like a nice little film that's kind of on the same lines of Conan the Barbarian, in that kind of realm, whereas this one's a little bit cheesier, and there's some really crazy stunt work with animals, obviously hence the Beastmaster. There's a hawk. There is also a tiger, which actually I've learned died not shortly after this film because of the ink that dyed its skin, which is just really sad and tragic, unfortunately. But there was also 2 ferrets, I want to say, which Kodo and anyway, this movie was for Kodo. I need to rewatch it. Obviously, this is a film that's a classic for a lot of people, like a TV classic. A lot of people growing up in the 80s and 90s remember this film very well. And I'm fairly certain I've seen snippets of it growing up, but I've never watched it until this moment, all the way through. And it was a lot of fun. And I would love to see this again, hopefully with friends next time. And yeah, I'm so happy that Vinegar Syndrome put this out, and it's an incredible looking film. It's maybe not the best looking 4K in the world, because obviously it's more of like a TV movie in some kind of sense, but it's a lot of fun, and I'm glad that they treated it this well. All right, now we're going to transition into some books that I've read. So I'm not going to say too much about these books because a lot of this information is very dense. But anyway, so for people who are just here for the films, you can exit out of the video, or please keep watching. I would love to hear your thoughts on what I've been reading as well. But the first book that I read, actually I've been reading for about 5 or 6 months. I just kind of stopped reading. I don't know about all of you, but I have moments where I get into like a reading binge where I want to read a lot, and then it becomes like cold for a few months as well. So this is that last book that I was reading, that I was like kind of just reading a little bit here and there, but I finally read it, and I'm talking about Fire and Blood, the George R.R. Martin, pretty much the Targaryen history, a really good history of the Targaryens, and it's a thick book with a lot of history involved. Almost reminds me of Genesis, obviously, in the Bible, so a lot of names and numbers, a lot of things to remember. There's a lot of information in here, like the dying of the dragons, the Targaryen line. But yeah, I'm excited to obviously continue with George R.R. Martin's work. Obviously, like a lot of other people, I'm kind of stuck with Game of Thrones because I've read the first 5 books and also have read this now, and now I have to wait forever until he probably will never release it, but who knows. But anyone pick this one up? I enjoyed it, but like I said, a lot of names and numbers, and maybe not too. It's not one of those not one of those books. I almost said film. It's not one of those books that you want to not put down. It's something you can put down and like read in chunks. All right, next is a book about the NBA bubble, and it's called Bubble Ball: Inside the NBA's Fight to Save a Season by Ben Golliver. This was actually quite an excellent book. Obviously, not everyone who's watching this channel is a fan of the NBA, nor are they a sports fan in general, but I am a basketball fan, and I am a fan of the NBA, regardless of the dramatic theatrics of it all. But this is a really interesting book. I almost did it again. But this is really about the author. He is a journalist, and his journey in the NBA bubble. If any of you are unaware, when COVID-19 struck, it stopped everything really. It stopped sports as well. And with the NBA, what they did is they decided to go to Orlando, Florida, with 22 of their 30 teams, and finish out the season and have the finals there, with nobody coming in and out of the bubble. And so it was a very lockdown-like situation, and in my opinion, a very smart situation. And I think it worked really well, although it does mention, of course, the psychological effects of that happening with the players and the people who were involved in this. But it was really enjoyable, and I know this was like maybe the NBA's lowest viewing rating ever, but this fascinates me. This whole concept of like, all right, we're all going to be in one location, we're going to try to fight this virus, and they're also going to stick here and just play this out and like try to finish out the season effectively and do it in an intelligent way. And I can really commend the NBA for doing that. So this book was really more about this person's experience, the author's experience. So it wasn't necessarily too much about the things going on with the games per se. But yeah, talking about a lot about the psychology of a lot of these players, their emotions going through it all. And yeah, I think it's well worth a read if you are a fan of sports. And it's just a really interesting topic nonetheless, because this doesn't ever happen. All right, next is a book by Peter Wallenben. He is a German author. He talks a lot about ecological things, but really it's like pop science. I enjoy his past books on the inner life of trees, or the hidden life of trees. And yeah, I wanted to read his inner life of animals, which is really just tidbits on examples, mostly testimony. So it's not necessarily super scientific, like I said. This person is talking mostly about pop science, but it is interesting nonetheless. And this author is talking about different things like love, grief, compassion, good and evil, these concepts of fear and pain, empathy that animals, all over the world kind of illustrate and show, and we obviously anthropomorphize a lot of these animals and think that in human context. So it's really interesting to read. It's really short, really quick, easy read, and I enjoyed it. So yeah, I would recommend picking this one up. I would recommend Hidden Life of Trees a lot more, though. That's definitely his best book. And I saved the best for last for all of you people who are like, what was all that? He never talks about books nor anything else. But I want to talk about JHorror. JHorror, which is the definitive guide to The Ring, The Grudge, and The Beyond by David Kalat. This is a great book. This came out in like 2007, I want to say. So it still has some things that are, a little bit missing when it comes to the recent past like 15 years of Japanese horror. But it's really talking about the effects of Ringu, or which is actually just Ring. Ringu is the American. That's something I learned about this. Kind of adaptation of the Japanese name. But anyway, this is a book that talks about audition. So Kiyoshi Kurosawa and a lot of other people involved in that realm. And I'm actually going to be talking about this book a little bit further on with some friends. So I'll be talking a little bit more depth about Japanese horror in general in a video coming down in the pipeline. And it may or may not be on my channel, but nonetheless, I'm going to point you in that direction because I'm super excited about talking about it. But really definitive book, gives you a lot of good information. A lot of these movies that are mentioned in this book are still really hard to find because obviously we are in a place where either in the United States or the United Kingdom, in these regions, these are places where we don't have access to these DVDs and Blu-rays. If we do, they're kind of relatively scarce or bootlegged or whatever. But regardless, I recommend reading this if you are into Japanese horror, into books like and movies like Audition, The Grudge, The Ring, etc. So check it out if you haven't seen it. Read it. Anyway, that is what I've been doing for the month of January. Thank you so much for checking this video out and staying this long and seeing what I read as well. I would love to know what you have been watching, what you've been reading, and what you've been doing for the past month. I hope you enjoy the day. I hope you like this video. Comment down below, share, hit the notification bell, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. I'm not jonesing around.